Good afternoon, Premiers, members of the media. Welcome to the closing press conference. For members of the media, we have 2 microphones available, and we will be alternating between them. We ask that you use one of those microphones, and please identify yourself, your organization, and identify who the question is for. Bon après-midi au Premier Ministre, membre de la...
Good afternoon to the media people, the Premiers. Welcome to the press conference for the media. We have 2 mics. Please identify yourself, specify to whom the question is for. Premier Galland will make a declaration.
Opening statement, and we remind Premiers to tap your microphones. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Thank you, everyone, for your presence.
I just want to quickly thank all of the organizers of this summer edition of COF. I very much appreciate all the passion that they put into it. It was great to see New Brunswickers, people from Charlotte County, people from the Bucktouche area where we first met, really contribute as well to the experience of the premiers and their delegates. We also want to take a moment to thank all of the media as well. You have been in extreme weather at some times, and we appreciate your patience. So very quickly, I'd like to update you. I'd like to go back to what we discussed quickly yesterday, and then, of course, talk a little bit about today. The Canadian economy and the future economic prosperity of Canadian families was the focus of our discussions yesterday. We talked about U.S.-Canada trade relationship. We talked about diversifying our markets, and we also talked about internal trade, doing everything we can to reduce barriers, to drive innovation, and give consumers more choice here in Canada. We talked about the importance of market access for diversification of our markets. We also, of course, asked the Prime Minister to join us at a meeting of the First Ministers in the fall to discuss the economy, to discuss the competitiveness of the Canadian economy, to discuss the productivity of the Canadian economy, and to talk about trade diversification as well to help strengthen the Canadian economy. De plus, nous avons...
Moreover, we have today continued our discussions about trade, interprovincial trade here in Canada, and since we already gave an update, we agreed on several points to have concrete actions to reduce the barriers to interprovincial trade. And this, of course, is coming after the agreement the agreement that we signed, that we're putting into place. We mentioned 5 things already.
When it comes to internal trade that I updated the media on a while ago, but we are very pleased to take immediate and significant action on these 5 items. And we're also very keen to do what we can on the other 19 recommendations that remain, that we know we can find ways in which to ensure we reduce barriers to, again, drive growth and strengthen the Canadian economy. Today, we discussed healthcare as well. Nous avons parlé du besoin.
We talked about the need for the federal state to restore funding adequately to have durability of healthcare in Canada. We discussed several aspects within the healthcare system that we're delivering for Canadians.
The possibility of a national pharmacare program. We discussed senior care, mental health and addictions, and talked about how a holistic approach is needed, including housing, to ensure we help support those with mental health and addictions challenges. Talked about the possibilities of joint procurement together as well to drive costs down when it comes to healthcare, making sure we can put more money to serve the patients even better across the country. We also talked about the need for for publicly healthy and safe legalization of cannabis by the federal government. We believe that there's still some work that the federal government can help us do to ensure that the legalization of cannabis by the federal government goes as smoothly as possible, and we look forward to working on ensuring that we keep Canadians safe when this indeed happens in mid-October. Alors, avec tout ça dit,
With that said, I will certainly hear your questions, and of course you can ask questions to the premiers at this table.
to myself or to any of the other premiers at the table. Merci beaucoup.
David Cochran with CBC News. Premier Ford, good to be able to talk to you. On Wednesday, the Prime Minister shuffled his cabinet and said he had to do that in part because of the changing dynamic at the federal provincial level. And he also talked about Conservatives playing the fear card when it comes to issues like asylum seekers and immigration. And it sure seemed to a lot of people like he was talking about you and your government. So I'm wondering how you respond to what the Prime Minister did and what he had to say.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Premier Gallant for hosting myself and the other premiers, and I want to thank the people of New Brunswick for treating all of us like gold here. So I want to thank everyone. As for the Prime Minister's comments, that's his comments. I'm not going to play politics with that whatsoever. I'm very proud to say we had great collaboration with all the premiers, and we resolved a lot of issues. And again, this is the leadership of Premier Gallant that led the way, and we had a very, very successful last couple days.
When you got here, Premier Ford, you joined Premier Mo's challenge, court reference on the federal carbon tax, and said you were going to be reaching out to the other premiers for support on this. Did you find any other allies beyond Scott Moe?
Well, again, everyone it's their choice, right? Premier Moe, myself, we're deciding to take a different avenue when it comes to the carbon tax. I was elected with a clear mandate from the people of Ontario to get rid of the carbon tax and cap and trade, and that's exactly what we're going to do. If Premier Moe wants to answer as well, he's welcome to.
I could just provide a brief comment with respect to the reference case that we have that the government of Ontario and Ontarians have chosen to intervene on. And I think it's important for us to understand that provinces are able to address global climate change and emissions in their jurisdiction in any way that they choose. That was the basis of the Vancouver Declaration that was signed by many on stage here, as well as our previous premier in Saskatchewan, Brad Wall. That declaration did provide the latitude for jurisdictions across the province, across the nation, provinces and territories across the nation to address their emissions in a way that would provide real results in contributing to Canada's target at the Paris Accord. And each province has the latitude to put forward their effort in that initiative. We've done that in Saskatchewan. You've seen plans across the nation being put forward as well, and I think they're credible plans, and we should have a discussion at some point, or the federal government should have a look at those plans as to the real opportunity that we have here in this nation to make actual emissions reductions, and other provinces, some provinces are choosing to address that with carbon pricing or carbon taxation or cap and trade. In Saskatchewan, we've chosen a different path. It's a path that works for the industries that we have in the province.
Thank you, Premier. Microphone number 2.
Oui, bonjour, Hugo Lavallée de la Société Radio.
Hugo Lavallée, Société Radio-Canada. Mr. Gallant, you named a list of measures earlier that you want to put forward to facilitate trade between provinces. These are rather specific, very targeted measures. Are they truly sufficient to counter possible consequences arising from America's protectionist measures? I think it's clear that there is a will on the part of the premiers to act in a very tangible way and to act quickly to deal with the barriers that we have in terms of interprovincial trade. This will has been shown today, and also it was manifest when the Canadian Free Trade Agreement was signed. But as I said earlier, we do agree that ever since we've had this historic agreement, we've not followed up as we could have, as we should have. So today we are expressing once again our will to take tangible action. And when you say that they are specific measures, yes, they are specific, targeted. But think of regulating transport, for instance. I can't speak for my fellows, my colleagues, but we in New Brunswick, we have an industry, a logistics industry which is substantial, and the trucking industry is very important for our New Brunswick economy. So we're quite proud to see this evolution of things, and it will help our industry grow here in New Brunswick and will lead to greater job possibilities, greater employment in our province in terms of agriculture as well. Each province around the table here, these measures will help stimulate the economy and lead to new jobs being created. There's much to do still, as I mentioned earlier. There's 19 other actions, other measures that we want to work on and implement. And not only will we request this of our ministers, but Ministers Ballister and McNeil will be at the table as well to ensure that significant progress is made when it comes to the 19 other measures we want to take by this fall. Regarding the alcohol trade, you said there was no consensus on minimal thresholds for personal exemption, but do you have a schedule on which you want to implement these measures that will reflect this will? The consultation table that we're going to request of our ministers, along with Ministers Ballister and McNeil, this should help us to ensure we won't make the mistakes we made in the past, that the proper steps will be respected, and this will include doing more to allocate commercial trade in alcoholic beverages. We're seeking progress as well in all the areas we've mentioned. We hope to have this progress by the time fall comes. And within a few months, we'll ask our ministers to come back to us with concrete measures they will have taken in the meantime after today's meeting.
Translation services.
So Bruce, we'll just allow Mr. Pallister to jump in as well.
Premier.
Donald Trump is wanting to erect a wall between us and our strongest trading partner and theirs. These premiers took positive steps in the last couple of days and have been working, and we have been working together for months to make sure we take those walls down inside our country. And this is a tremendous achievement and vitally important to Canadians. We are a trading nation, and we have to demonstrate we understand the benefits to the Canadian family of trading more effectively within our own boundaries if we wish to make the case to others that they should pull the wall down between us and them.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, please.
My question is for Premiers Ford and Gallant. If you could talk a little bit about what you heard about, are the provinces ready for cannabis legalization? What concerns did you hear around the table?
There was certainly lots of discussion that were had in terms of what needs to be done. One of the things that I think really resonated with the conversations and people got quite passionate about is the need to ensure that we have a robust awareness program. And we need the federal government to step up in that regards. In New Brunswick, we're certainly doing what we can to ensure that people recognize that the legalization of cannabis by the federal government does not mean that cannabis is good for you. So we have to raise awareness, not only of that, but also in our case in New Brunswick, raise awareness in terms of what the rules will be, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. Also, raising awareness as well with our youth of the importance of them not doing cannabis, consuming cannabis. We have to remember that the goals that have been laid out by the federal government for the legalization of cannabis by the federal government are to get cannabis out of the hands of our youth and the proceeds from selling cannabis out of the hands of criminals. And that has to be of the utmost importance in everything that we do as provinces and territories to prepare for the legalization of cannabis by the federal government. And certainly we believe that awareness with this major public policy shift is absolutely crucial, and there's only a few months now until it's legalized, and we as a table have asked the federal government to step up that much more when it comes to the awareness campaign that we all think is crucial to ensuring the smoothest transition possible. And I'll finish with this, the smoothest transition possible are the words I use, because I personally recognize that since this is a major policy shift, there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some challenges along the way. So we got to do the best we can to prepare, to minimize and mitigate those challenges, but there will be challenges. And one of the best things that we can do is have the federal government have a robust awareness program and enhance the efforts that they've put in so far when it comes to that.
What are some of the efforts that Ontario is making on that front?
Well, first of all, this is a path that none of us have gone down. As the Premier was just mentioning, there might be a few bumps in the road. As I've always said, and I've said this during the campaign, number one concern is making sure our children are safe. Number one concern is to tell and educate our children that smoking cannabis is not healthy. It's not good. We're going to consult with police right across Ontario, a number of police agencies and associations, and get their input. And then from there, we're going to move forward with it. But we had a good discussion with all the premiers. It differs from province to province, and I'm sure they're going to be dealing with it the way they'd like to deal with it.
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Microphone 2.
It's David Haynes for Queen's Park Briefing. For Premier Notley, did Premiers Ford or Premiers Moe raise the topic of carbon pricing or a carbon tax during the roundtable, and what kind of discussion was had about it?
Well, in fact, it never actually came up at the table itself, the conversation. But certainly, what the position of Alberta is, as you know, we are into the second year of our levy, and we're confident that it's the right approach to take. The Made in Alberta plan that we introduced before the federal government's plan, notwithstanding people's claims to the contrary, we're actually in a position now in Alberta where for the second year in a row we're leading economic growth in the country. We continue to have the highest wages in the country. We created over 90,000 jobs last year. So that's happening in the face of our application of the levy, while we're also making great progress with respect to phasing out coal, renewable energy development, and working with our partners, industry in the oil sands, to take carbon out of the barrel moving forward. So it's a plan that works for us, and so we're happy to carry on with that. And we weren't particularly interested in having a debate on the matter, but as it turned out, we had a number of other issues to discuss, and we did.
For Premier Ford, you said that you would try to build a coalition to stand up on the carbon tax and so on. Why wouldn't you follow through and raise it there when you had the roundtable talk?
Let me tell you, you've followed me around the province. You've talked to me about this 1,000 times. A carbon tax, in my opinion, this is my opinion. We were elected on a clear mandate to get rid of the carbon tax. The carbon tax is the worst tax you could put on businesses, the worst tax you could put on families. We're supposed to be competitive around the world. We're trying to compete. We have a huge manufacturing base in Ontario. We have a burden of a carbon tax on the backs of these businesses. When we're trying to compete against our neighbors to the south, we won't be competitive. In Ontario, we have the highest hydro rates in North America, some of the highest taxes in North America. Then we have the carbon tax on top of that. We need to be competitive. And I can tell you one thing, Ontario will be the most competitive region anywhere in the world. You have to give us a little while. We just got elected. We've been in office for a few weeks, but we hit the ground running, and we're going to turn this province around.
Thank you very much.
Why not make that case to your fellow premiers?
I'm sorry?
Why not make why not make that case to your fellow premiers?
Well, you know something, we did discuss this privately with some of the premiers. Every region is different. You know, one size doesn't fit all. Other people have their opinions. I was elected recently with a clear mandate. I'm following through with our mandate. What I said I was going to do on the campaign, we're going to do. We're going to get done, and we're going to make Ontario competitive once again. We will be the engine of Canada once again.
Thank you, Premier. Next question, please. Microphone 2.
Hello? So I was just looking at a transcript from an interview with the Prime Minister about pharmacare, in which he says that any speculation of how much it will look like or how much it will cost is simply irresponsible at this point. But we talked to Mr. Hoskins earlier this morning, who was perfectly willing to accept the estimates of the Parliamentary Budget Officer that it would be $20 billion, possibly more, to set this up. And presumably this is something that you just talked about, the cost of making this happen, if it is worth doing. So how would any of you characterize the Prime Minister saying it's irresponsible to talk cost?
Before my colleagues answer, I mean, I do want to correct something, at least from my point of view of what you just said. I think this morning they talked about a $20 billion program for which they estimate, I believe the number was 28 or 29 billion that is spent now. So the point I think that was being made with the $20 billion number is that there could be significant savings if there was a national pharmacare program. Now, I don't want to speak on behalf of my colleagues. I'll do the best I can as chair, though, to say that we discussed the national pharmacare program, discussed what parts would be very important for provinces and territories to be able to discuss moving forward. And certainly many around the table spoke passionately about how they would expect the federal government to be a part of it financially, if not cover all of it. So I think it's fair to say that those elements were discussed. And in terms of the cost, we didn't get into the nitty-gritty of that. Obviously, there's a implementation group that is put together, and they are doing the work that they're doing to make sure they communicate to Canadians exactly what this could look like and what options are there. So in terms of cost, that really didn't come up. But in terms of who would be paying for it, what are some of the important considerations if this were to move forward, was certainly discussed around the table.
Yeah, if I could, I would speak to that. I think I attended first of all, let me thank Premier Gallant and the people of New Brunswick who did a remarkable job over the last 3 days in hosting this Council of Federation meetings. The hospitality in New Brunswick, well, I would say was almost what you would expect in my province of Newfoundland and Labrador. But nevertheless, one of the important topics that we discussed was that, of course, of pharmacare. And when you look at the communique, we speak to the fact that, you know, what we're looking for here is a federally funded, federally sustainable program. And what we've seen over recent years is the federal government not actually, in what we've said, there's a lot of room for the federal government to be more involved in healthcare. In my own province, we currently have federal funding to the tune of 17%, and it's the province that now funds 83%. And if you remember back in '84, it was at the 50-50 range. We think that there are significant opportunities here for the federal government to participate into a program that they are keenly interested in. And Premier Gallant is right. At this morning's breakfast, it was discussed that the program currently right now is costing Canadians some $28 to $29 billion. With a federally funded pharmacare program, there are significant savings to the tune would bring this program cost down to $20 billion. So there's economic benefits to it, but there are some significant benefits to healthcare for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. So for us as premiers, the discussion was indeed very robust, and it's our proposal, it be federally funded and a sustainably federal program with responsibility being with the national government.
Does anyone else have anything to say about being called irresponsible, or any suggestion that someone might be irresponsible to talk cost?
Thank you. We're going to go to microphone number 1. Michel Brideau.
Bonjour, Michel.
RDI, Mr. Couillard, what do you think of what we accomplished today for trade barriers between provinces? Do you think we're coming close to free trade, and how long is it going to take? The existence of the agreement is good news for the country. I would remind you that at the very beginning, the barriers for public market were taken down, which is a progress. With the meeting of the last few days, I want to thank Mr. Gallant, our president, and the people of New Brunswick for greeting us. We wanted to go in the nitty-gritty of things. In the past discussions, we were told, it's nice principles, but we would like to see specific things that will change. I think this is what we started to do today. And there's a group of 19 actions that remain, but they are identified in a very specific fashion. So these are progress that are important. This is what we need to do to answer to the economic uncertainties and to improve our east-west trade links, not just north-south. Do you think the barriers, how long is it going to take for us to accomplish more progress? We did important work, but in the next weeks and the next month, 2 of our colleagues will be responsible on behalf of everyone to follow the progress in each province on the totality of the 24 challenges that are brought forward with the reference showing in the documents that were forwarded. I think it's important progress. I was very happy that we could name specific actions following our meeting.
Number 2, Bill Curry.
Bill Curry from the Globe and Mail. Maybe for Premier Ford and Premier Pallister. There's a report out this morning. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper told a private audience that he feels that the Liberal government is deliberately dragging its heels on NAFTA for political reasons because they think it's a good idea to not have a deal with Donald Trump. It's good for them. He also said that he doesn't believe that the Liberal government is using him properly, taking advantage of him, unlike other prime ministers, other premiers, for instance, in making the case to win over Americans on NAFTA. So what do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to get into the federal political arena there. I'm a strong believer that we have to focus on a good NAFTA deal. I just want to remind everyone that Ontario will be affected drastically. We do $389 billion a year in trade with our U.S. neighbors. It is absolutely critical to make sure this happens. I've been reaching out to governors. I'm going to continue to reach out to governors. 19 states, their number 1 trading partner is Ontario. There's another 9 states. We're the 2nd largest trading partner. I've had an opportunity to speak to a number of governors. I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to be heading down to the U.S. to do a tour because nothing is better than looking at someone eye to eye like we did here, and a great group of premiers. And I can tell you one thing, as you say, the new kid on the block, every single meeting I was in, it wasn't about being part of the orange team, the red team, or the blue team. We had a tremendous amount of consensus. There was great collaboration amongst all of us. Sure, there was a couple differences, but we worked it out. And I'm proud to say this is an incredible meeting, and I'm looking forward to next year as Premier Moe is hosting it, but a great group of premiers.
I'll just build on that and say I think watching these international trade agreements being made, like watching wieners get made, I think it's not entertaining at all, and it's much more important that it be done properly and well. Perhaps the former Prime Minister makes a valid point. We have other former Prime Ministers as well who had great working relationships with U.S. presidents in their time that might be assets in terms of advancing the cause of resolving NAFTA and other trade disputes we have currently before us. Certainly all of us here are committed to being part of that team. We're going to reach out in every way we possibly can, not just to talk to those who agree with us, but to talk to those who need to be educated about the benefits of what has been and must continue to be the strongest trading relationship between 2 countries in the world.
And lastly, on beer and alcohol imports, it sounds like there were some of you who are pushing for a deal today on specific amounts of alcohol and beer that can cross across the border. And Mr. Gallant said earlier he didn't want to identify or name names, but some people weren't comfortable with that and they needed to go back to their province and have some consultation. So do any of you want to identify yourselves as the ones that held up a deal on specific amounts?
Well, I'll step up first here. Look, I think it's really important for us as a group of individuals to be able to get together, to have a conversation, and to disagree, try to work them out, and if we can't, that we find the common ground wherever that may be. And that's what we did today. We found common ground, so it's a consensus. We all signed the communique in the way that it's written, and what is written is that we are all committing to doing what we can to increase in a significant way the levels of which Canadians can import alcoholic beverages. There was a willingness of this table to look into the matter in a significant way when the alcohol beverage working group was created with our ministers, in our case, the trade minister. There was willingness when we discussed it yesterday and again this morning to move on this issue. And like I said earlier, we recognize that it will help increase the choices for consumers and drive some innovation. But more importantly, we recognize that it is a symbol for many Canadians that there are too many barriers for interprovincial trade. So we recognize that symbol, and we have all committed over the next few weeks and months to take action to significantly increase the levels for import. That's where we landed on the consensus. We're certainly going to respect those that want to make sure they have a conversation with the people they represent to get a feel of exactly what that could look like and how they could go about it. And we're very pleased that we were able to get that significant consensus today to take significant action. So with that said, I'd quickly like to turn it over to Premier Moe, who will be hosting the summer COF meetings next summer.
Well, thank you, Premier Gallant, and thank you to you and your wife, Corinne, for the just wonderful hosts that you have been here the last number of days. It's been appreciated. I think I speak on behalf of all premiers when I want to thank you, your wife, Corinne, as well as all of the people that helped organize this event, and all of the people across New Brunswick that just hosted us as the premiers of this nation so graciously, and we are so thankful for that hosting. I am here to welcome everyone to next year's Council of the Federation meeting, which will take place on the shores of the Saskatchewan River in sunny Saskatoon, where we will trade in some of the maritime hospitality that we had this year for some prairie hospitality, and we'll trade in some of the seafood that we were able to enjoy this year for some prairie cuisine. And we look forward to that on July 9th to July the 11th. We will. You'll see what that is when you get there. And we'll have the opportunity in between now and next year's Council of the Federation meeting to continue with the discussions that we have worked on again here this week with respect to trade we've talked about our largest trading partner, but also trade around the world, and continue with discussions with respect to the diversity that we have across this nation, but most certainly realizing that the diversity that we have, whether it be an economic diversity and how we generate our wealth in our provinces and our wealth in our nation, or how we provide the services to the people in our respective jurisdictions, or ultimately the people in our great nation of Canada. That diversity that we have, as long as we share and continue with our synergistic relationship that we have, is most certainly our nation's strength. That is the motto of Saskatchewan, from many people's strengths, and I think it rings true across the nation. So we welcome everyone to the city of Saskatoon, the province of Saskatchewan, next summer on the shores of the Saskatchewan River.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.